I don't think I ever really believed everything.
And I realized that quite a few of the things didn't hold water.
The actual religions were man-made from wherever.
God? Who's God? What's God?
I think skepticism really is the first step.
Scientific zest and zeal for the real world.
That was it. I was an atheist from then on.
You know, you come into a house, Jewish art, Jewish books.
Hi, I'm Rad.
Hi, I'm Susan.
Welcome to the New York City Road to Atheism show. We're here to introduce an individual who had gone up through the ranks of childhood to adult and had many changes in his life. And he's about to tell us about how he took the road to atheism. And your name is?
My name is Henry.
Glad to meet you, Henry.
Welcome.
I'd like to ask you a couple of questions, and we're going to interview you and find out some things that you've gone through, some highlights in your career and when you were a child. And when was the first step that you took that you noticed that something was a little bit different in your life? Could you tell us?
Well, my parents are Holocaust survivors. Based on their experiences, they totally rejected religion in every shape and form, to such an extent that it was never even discussed. We didn't discuss holidays. We didn't discuss God. Religion had no place in my house. But, you know, growing up in America and some of the other quirks that my parents had, religion kept coming into my life, at least for the first 20 years in various different forms and shapes. I could not avoid it. At various times, things changed. I remember the first time God came into my life, and it was kind of strange. I must have been about 6 years old, give or take.
Where were you born?
I was born in abroad. I was born in Linz, Austria. Same Hitler once lived there. Isn't that interesting? And my parents brought me to this country when I was about 1 year old. Like I said, God was never mentioned. I had no idea about God.
So you grew up where in America?
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, yay!
Of course. Always, right from the very beginning. And then one day I was playing with a few friends of mine. I still remember the little yard that we're playing in. And this girl who I knew then, she must have been about 6 years old also, her name was Deborah. She came up to me and she says, words to this effect, I don't remember exactly, God is looking at you. God? Who's God? What's God? So, there he is. You know, I kind of look strange. God. Of course, you know, the biggest TV show at that time was Superman, and I just finished watching Peter Pan. So my view of God was something like a combination of Superman and Peter Pan. Mm-hmm. Superman flew, and I remember seeing Mary Martin fly on TV. And then all of a sudden, my parents decided that I had to have a Jewish education.
Tradition.
Yes, tradition, right. I didn't know about tradition then, but, you know.
The culture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All our friends were sending their kids, and they had a lot of friends from Europe. Mm-hmm. Who had different, reactions to God and religion than my parents did. But this was both my parents. But both my parents just rejected nothing. No holidays. No, I didn't know from anything. You would think my parents would send me to a very modern, yeshiva after school. But they didn't. They sent me to a very, very Orthodox, religious Jewish school. Nice. And the reason was, and I found this out much later, was that it was cheap. Not only was it cheap, it was almost free. So I started learning all this stuff about, religion and God and the Old Testament and the Torah and davening and benching and all this stuff. And, it sort of got to me. And it didn't get to me because I actually believed the philosophy of what was going on. It was that I had a very dynamic teacher, young rabbi. He was very American, didn't have the beard or everything. He was, very clean-shaven, very young, and he talked about all the things I was interested in, besides this religious stuff. He talked about bowling and baseball and, all this stuff. I was a little bit too young for girls at that time, so that didn't come in. But, all these dynamic things. And he really got to me. I used to hang out with him a lot. I used to go synagogue all the time and hang out with him. Not because I really believed this stuff. I mean, I sort of believe it, but not really.
Did he prepare you for bar mitzvah?
Well, he would have, but I guess he got another job by the time I was in the 5th grade.
Oh, I see.
So he was gone. Mm-hmm. But he had some really interesting things about him.
Such as?
Well, I remember he was very, very Orthodox. Mm-hmm. I mean, extremely Orthodox. Now, I was living in Borough Park. At that time, Borough Park was a very mixed neighborhood. It not only was, modern Jews, Italian, Irish. It was also a little bit more modern than it is today. Very mixed neighborhood. I remember once we were passing by this big synagogue on 15th Avenue, about 47th Street, and we saw people coming. This was Shabbos also. This was he was coming out of the We were walking along with him, like I said, we were hanging around, and we passed by this synagogue, big synagogue, lots of people coming out. And looked okay to me, and then he looked at me. He says, "Those are bad Jews." Bad Jews? Why? I mean, they go to the synagogue on Shabbos. Bad Jews. Didn't explain, but I later learned out that they were Reform. Mm-hmm. And if there's one thing Orthodox Jews don't like
Reform.
They don't like Reform. I sort of looked at him. And I remember one time, he was very strict. I remember he didn't carry anything on him when he was walking around. One day, we were walking around, and I said, "Hey," I pointed to him and said, "There's something clanging in your pocket." Some money? Yeah. I'm 9 or 10 years old. Money meant a lot to me. Pennies, nickels, that all translated into candy and comic books and ice cream. And, I thought, wow, if he has money and doesn't want to carry it, maybe let me carry it. He looked around, checked around, looked in his pocket. He found, a big fist of money. Mm-hmm. At least I thought it was a big fist. I had a small fist in those days. I said, "Oh, good. I'll take it. You don't have to carry it." He said, "No, you're not going to carry it." He threw it on the street. And he wouldn't let me pick it up.
Is there a reason for that? I mean,
you can't carry money on Shabbos. And he wouldn't let me do it. Ooh, that hurt.
He was very strict.
Yeah.
You were what age at the time?
It was between the ages of, let's say, 8 o'clock, or 8 years old and 12 years old.
Did at any time going forward from that, did you become more cemented in your ideas, more convinced as far as atheism is concerned, that there was not a God?
Well, at that time, I was kind of, more or less agnostic. I didn't think about it. Hebrew school was fun. I met my friends. I did as little work about it as possible. Did a little reading. I wasn't very doctrinaire.
but you prepared for your bar mitzvah.
This is interesting. I was going to prepare for my bar mitzvah, but my parents moved. My parents moved to a richer, more affluent neighborhood. Mm-hmm. This was in Mill Basin. Mill Basin, not far from Kings Plaza. Yes. So we moved there. They met different people.
Different
ideas, and the synagogues were more expensive. So my Jewish education ceased.
And you went to public school?
Oh, I always went to public school.
Oh, I see.
This was always after school. Mm-hmm. Jewish education. Bar mitzvah, no. What my parents had was a party. They had a party. They went down someplace in the Lower East Side. We had boiled chicken, boiled potatoes. Yeah, they had a party, and all their friends gave me lots of money, which my parents proceeded to keep. So I got a watch out of it, and I got a ring, which my mother wore as long as she lived. But that was it. Mm-hmm.
What about your day job? When you were working, were there any conflicts as far as your feelings are concerned, or were you that strong in your feelings that people knew about it on the job as far as atheism?
Okay, well, there's a part before that.
College?
No, the part before that comes in high school.
Okay.
Now, all of a sudden, in high school, being different people, sitting right in front of me, and I don't really think about these things too much, was a person I know. His name was Bradley Dorff. Brad Dorff. One day he turns around. He looks at me, just like me. He turns around and he says, "Henry, you don't believe in God, do you?" I said, "God? I don't think so." Then we talked a few minutes about his belief, and then I all of a sudden realized, yeah, I don't believe it. Of course, a little while after that, it became very traumatic. Oh my God, that's words to that effect. What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to me? And of course, I had a very condensed view of life. I figured, oh my God, what's going to happen to my parents? They're going to die tomorrow. I'm going to die in 20 years. I was only 14, 15 done. And all of a sudden, this became a preoccupation in my mind. 15-year-olds should not be thinking about death. They shouldn't. So all of a sudden, it just comes to me. But the nice thing about the human mind is, no matter what you're fixated on, it fades away. It goes away. It stops bothering you. And you stop thinking of it, but the basic philosophy stays. That, the stuff I learned in Hebrew school, and the stuff that I read in the Bible, and of course, you see, I remember seeing the movie Inherit the Wind, and I mean, you start to say, that makes no sense. Not only does it not make sense, that if it's true, that is so unappetizing. The whole picture of living in the light of God and just
ceremoniously.
That's it.
Yep.
And then I start thinking about, well, I'm living in the God. That may not be so bad, but all these religious people, I don't want to spend eternity with them. I don't even want to spend 10 minutes with them. I mean, if these religious people, sat next to me and started talking, the first thing I would do is leave. And that's only 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
So in other words, what you were doing, you were reasoning. You thought you were doing logic. You were trying to figure out something that made sense and something that just didn't make sense.
I really wasn't trying anything. I was just thinking.
It was just at you like that.
Yeah. I just couldn't buy it.
Right.
I couldn't buy it. I couldn't believe it. And I just...
And you never lost any friends because...
Well, you come across people, and I had several Jewish friends who just could not accept my being Jewish and a non-believer. And they would just come at me, and, my wife's over there. Hi, Sean. We would get the same things. Yeah, you can't be Jewish and an atheist. You can't be Jewish and an atheist. And these are people who say they believe in God but do nothing else. Okay, they may have a Passover Seder, have a couple of ceremonies, but nothing else. They knew nothing else. They didn't even know their own religion. Shirley and I, we're very heavily into Jewish music. We're very heavily into Jewish culture, Jewish books. You come into a house, Jewish art, Jewish books, Jewish music. And, we were Jewish enough for these people because we didn't believe in God. I couldn't accept that. I mean, I didn't make big arguments with them. But what makes them Jewish? They say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai. That means, hero is real, God is only one. Yeah. Right. And that to them makes them a Jew. That's all they need. And I guess a lot of Christians feel the same way.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
All you have to do is believe.
Yeah.
There are what are called cafeteria Catholics, and I guess you're saying with the Jews that they show up only on certain holidays, and 1 or 2 Christmas, Easter, and that's about it. And then when they show up, that they've done their They're a bit so. That's
Just
okay.
to show you, there's a traditional meal, a Seder.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
Passover.
Yeah, Passover. So surely, very frequently we have a Seder. She, from various sources came up with a secular Seder. We do it. We know these very, quote, proper Jews. And what do? They say, let's eat. They eat, and that's it.
Well, it's again.
Hey, that's what my parents did. My parents never had a Seder in their house. I told you they didn't mind it. When I went to the Hebrew school, I said we got to have a Seder. Right? So my parents decided to placate me.
Acquiesce.
Okay, they placate me. So I was going to have a Seder like my rabbi showed me. Now there's a certain thing in the Seder which you take a piece of matzah and you hide it. So I said, I'll do the same thing. So we got to the part. Well, we skipped what he said. So I said, everybody look for the afikomen. That's the piece of matzah. I, by mistake, took the afikomen and put it in a drawer of underwear.
Oh, no.
Ooh, did my mother get mad? She was saying, she used the term, it's crumbs, but she used the term that she always used, krishkis. That was a Polish term or a Yiddish term, I don't know. And she said, you put krishkis with the underwear? We're going to get cockroaches. I got smacked pretty good. Another time I tried to do something on Hanukkah, I made my own menorah. Take a piece of wood, sand it, varnish it, take bottle caps, you put it on it, and then you put little pieces of cotton in there, then you put olive oil, and then you light it.
Oh, not even the candles.
No.
Uh-oh.
I almost set fire to the house. That's what my mother thought. She was beginning to regret sending me to a religious. But these are little stories that came up. I'll tell you, that probably did a lot to dissuade me from becoming religious. It was painful.
Did you have any other relatives that were involved with cousins and
not
aunts,
really.
uncles or anything like that
No.
that might have been religious?
No. The most religious people that I knew were some of my Italian friends in Borough Park. They went to release time. They talked about the Pope. They talked about the Vatican. And,
Vatican?
Yeah, well, and, they just talked about it. And that was fun. But they were fun people. I mean,
So were there any problems in college or when your job?
No. I think by the time I went to school, middle 60s and even afterwards, religion wasn't as big a part about our lives, especially during the 60s. I mean, drugs, sex and rock and roll.
Yeah.
I mean, this was all on our minds. There were some quasi-religious groups. My friends, my friends were Irish Catholic. When I went to school, they used to go to the church in New Paltz. That's the school I went to.
Oh, New Paltz.
So the interesting thing about their part of my friend's parish at school, Floyd Patterson. Floyd Patterson went to school. And he was always, around town and in school. They knew him. I didn't, because I didn't. He was always around with his kid in a little wagon. I mean, on TV, he looks like a small guy compared to Sonny Liston or Muhammad Ali. But when you saw him, that guy was huge. I mean...
Were there any other key milestones in your life as far as atheism is concerned?
Any in your jobs or
And my job...
dating?
Yeah.
Jobs, no. Dating, no. I mean, again, in the 60s, we were not into religion. I mean, you would see it on TV. I remember, watching Andy's Gang, and they were talking about going to Sunday school. I was watching Roy Rogers and
Gene Autry?
Gene Autry not, but Roy Rogers and Dale Evans had a lot of shows that were based on religion. I think Gene Autry was more of a
Singing cowboy.
a secular guy.
Yeah.
He did not mention religion as much as Roy Rogers. I think it was the Dale Evans influence about religion. Anything else that happened? Not really. I mean, I had another traumatic experience, which was similar to my first one in high school. I was starting to go to a new psychiatrist, and he pumped me up with a whole bunch of drugs.
Oh dear.
Oh yeah, and then all of a sudden, the same thing happened again. I mean, I just couldn't get this view of morbidity and death and parents and everybody dying. It was like a bad movie. Halloween. I mean, had to go be hospitalized. I was just crazy, and I stopped and I just started thinking of death. And that is
mostly because of drugs.
Yeah, and I stopped taking the drugs. And that.
Good.
But is this what religion is all about? You take away the fear, you take away the paranoia, and the preoccupation of what's going to happen. There's not really very much they have to offer. Right. Well, that may be enough to keep a lot of people coming to them, but they really have very little to offer. I mean, you don't do this, you go to hell. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, that's basically what they're selling. So you've been a member of the New York City Atheists for a number of years?
Well, I'm not technically a member. My wife is a member. I'm certainly a supporter.
Okay.
I may look very verbose now, but, because I think, I'm with people who, I can talk to. But I've been in situations. I was also a member of a secular Jewish group in New York City called City Congregation. Right. So let me give a plug. City Congregation in Manhattan. And I went with them, and you get, you try talking to different people, and you start talking to religious people. All they want to do is trap you. All they want to do is say gotcha. I mean, they're over the minutiae of life, Well, we say we're humanists. Our group is secular and humanistic, and they say, well, we believe in humanism. I said, no, not really. You believe in humanitarianism. Humanism means that we believe we're central to and God has no place in it. You can't convince them that. They just want to say, hey, I'm a humanist too, but you're not.
Different definition.
Yes.
I agree.
And they want to catch you, Well, they start giving you silly questions. Well, what would this world be like if we didn't have God?
A lot more peaceful.
Maybe.
Yes, less wars.
Maybe.
That's right, less ISIS and stuff like that.
I mean, you read the Bible and you see all these contradictions, You read the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not kill. And then the first thing, right after that, God is ordering the people of Israel.
Yeah, genocide.
To go kill other people.
That's right. And if you don't worship him on a day, if you work on a day of worship, that you should be stoned to death.
Yes. Or you have rebellious teenagers, you're allowed to stone them to death. So many religious people simply don't know what their Bible actually says.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there are 3 Ten Commandments. People
Three sets of them, yeah.
3 sets. And they're different.
Well, they're actually hundreds.
There's 30 of them?
There's a lot more. There are a lot more, but 3 basic rules that are listed.
Well, actually, there are mitzvahs, and they're called mitzvot in the Bible, and there's 613 of those, and there's 613. Am I right, Joe? Yeah. Okay. There's 613 things that you have to do, and
or not do.
Right.
Or not to, right.
And if you disobey one, it's like disobeying all of them. So all my friends who
have never eaten bacon.
Well, I had my friend, my friend's father had a thing. He was Orthodox in his home. Outside, he can do what he wants. So when he went home, they had kosher food all the time. And when they went out, bacon, eggs. His son didn't even do that. In fact, his son married somebody who was Italian, which is okay, but that leads to a lot of non-believing and non-doing in the home. So, the new rule is, you can be, and that's what he did. He was kosher at home, but elsewhere, he ate what he wanted. Shrimp, bacon. He was very big on lobster. A lot.
So, in your life, any central theme, before we finish this, any central theme that comes to you in mind of being an atheist or being with your wife and being involved in programs like this?
Well,
including New York City Atheists.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I am what I am, and that's all I am. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? I'm an atheist. I don't have to think about it. I'm an agnostic. I've had, sort of things which I can't explain in my life that keep popping up. And I say, how does that happen? Why does this happen? One thing I don't attribute this to is to some all-knowing being, an all-powerful being. There could be reasons. Maybe there's some kind of electrical energy going out. Maybe I picked up something. Maybe it's the waves bouncing off stuff. I don't know. Eventually I'll work it out, I'll sort it out. But, I'm no perfect person. I'm no saint. I do a lot of crazy, weird things. My atheism or agnosticism or whatever you want to call it is there. I am that. I believe in it just like I believe in gravity.
Well, you're living a life that should be lived if we didn't have religion.
Probably, yes.
That religion is like an extra. You're just living a regular, normal life, free of it.
I recently saw something about, that is attributed to Einstein. And Einstein, supposedly has different, takes on his philosophy. From what I saw, he said, people who believe, in an all-knowing God are very naive, and people who believe in an afterlife are engaging in wishful thinking.
Yes.
And that's basically what I think. If it happens, I don't know if I'll be too happy, but it happens. If it doesn't, well, I lived my life.
Well, you see coming across the rest of us in hell. So we'll have a grand old time.
I'll tell you, nothing could be worse than spending more than 10 minutes with Pat Robertson.
Okay, thank you very much. We do appreciate your participation in this and telling some people out there that, and with us as well, that there's more to life than just going to shul or to worship or something like that. You've had a good experience, and that you were able to cope with many different things. And that's good.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.